From the PSIA-AASI satellite studios in Hood River, Oregon, you're listening to First Chair, and we are chatting with Angelo Ross. Angelo, it's always great to chat with you.
Great to be back.
I think I start every interview with you the same way because it is just so fun to talk with
you. Well, I have fun too, George. It's been great. These last couple of weeks have been really fun, and it's nice to get your topics and try to put some thoughts together, and I enjoy it too.
Well, today we're going to be focusing on, I think, a really good topic, and that is setting goals, but setting attainable goals.
Yeah.
And kind of in your opinion, tell us the difference between just setting a goal and setting an attainable goal.
I in my life, in my career, I've heard a lot of people say to me, I want to do this. Mr. Ross, I want an A. George, what grade do you want to get? I want to get an A. But without being willing to sacrifice in any way or make any changes necessary in order to earn that grade. And I think the difference between that and setting attainable goals is, we talk about structure in teaching environments. I think goals need to be structured. It needs to be thought out. It needs to be planned. And there are ways that you can, like a gap analysis. How far are you from the goal, right? Start with that and breaking goals down into smaller bits. And the one that I think is probably the most important, and I know I struggle with this because I get really excited about things and I make a decision. I'm going to do this thing in my life without really having the conversation with myself that I need to be prepared for some kind of a change to my routine or change to my lifestyle. And because that involves now changing my own personal habits, and that is way easier said than done.
And again, to me, an attainable goal really can't be too small when you're looking at making a behavior change or a life change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, starting out tiny, and we've been talking some about tiny habits,
Mm-hmm.
It really works.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important in the process to have a coach, have a mentor, maybe several coaches, people who have been through it, and possibly and very likely some people who haven't been through it, to work out what the plan is going to be. And if you, like, back to the gap analysis idea, if you're a level 2 instructor and you'd like to attain level 3, finding someone either on your staff or in your region that you have access to like take a look at your technical performance and say, well, this is the standard, right? And this is where you are. And so here's the gap. And this is how much time I think is going to be necessary to bridge that gap. And then the things on snow and off snow to actually bridge that gap. And off snow might include stretching and strengthening and endurance and reading and studying and things like that, while on snow is going to be, possibly assessment activities, tasks. I want you to work on falling leaf and pivot slips for 3 weeks and then come back and see me and we'll gauge where you are now. But all of that stuff, to set up a program, and then you can't go wrong with a calendar, whether paper or on your phone, to actually set those dates and make those notifications pop up and say, okay, today's the day I need to start this, because a week and a half from now, this is where I want to be. So all of those little things help to get you in that direction.
And I look at myself. I really wanted to try out for divisional clinic leader in the Pacific Northwest, Rocky Mountain trainer in Rocky Mountain. Mm-hmm. And while it was easy to say, you get caught up in your job and teaching, and you're tired when you get home. And if you don't have attainable goals set along the way, all of a sudden that big goal just becomes overwhelming. And you're not making any steps toward it because you look at that and it's like, I just don't have time for this. But I do have time to read 1 page of the manual, or I even go as small as read a paragraph. Mm-hmm. Sit down, make the time and read that paragraph, and then put it away congratulate yourself for doing that and move on with your duties that you've got to get done, or whatever it is that is taking up your time. And then maybe do that for a couple of days, and then make it 2 paragraphs, grow it into a page, and then you can really start. And it's all because you've started setting this time aside to read that 1 paragraph. You're able to grow it and grow it and grow it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can scale that effort, right? So a lot of our membership they're working professionals. So maybe during the week it's a paragraph, or maybe it's a page, at night. But on Sunday morning, Saturday morning, maybe it's an hour, or and scale the effort so that it matches your lifestyle. And it might even involve like doing a little bit of a life analysis. I know I need to do this. I scroll the news, I scroll social media, and then it dawns on me, I just wasted 15 minutes. I could have been looking at this other thing. And having those, looking at those, that time spent as increments of time that could have been spent somewhere else. That I it like my Italian grandmother guilts me, that I can hear her in my that guilt trip, like, why did you do this when you said you wanted to do this? And then that get a little bit internal motivation that way.
Is it good to pair that with something else that is an important part of your day? Like when I sit down and on the sofa to relax, you do that, but then also pick up your study manual. And so you're combining the two so that the two together become a trigger or a cue. When I sit down and relax, I'm going to pick up my study materials. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. There's a strategy called habit stacking, where if you have things that you do every day, like brush your teeth, for example, but you forget to take your vitamin, then you put your vitamins in front of your toothbrush, and all of a sudden you've stacked those habits. And if one of your home chores during the week is to wipe off the bathroom sink, then you put the sponge in front of the vitamins in front of the toothbrush, and you stack these things on top of each other so that they physically, you see them physically in the same location, and it's practically impossible to get to one without going through the other. And so you do it, or you're more likely to do it.
And I put my floss in between the toothbrush and the vitamins, right? And then purposely shove it away.
That's right. Yeah. And I think, it's important, obviously, to understand what the expectations of the goal are, and we have a set of national standards and performance guides that spell out our levels of certification. It's for public consumption. So I've done this before at my home hill. We'll get a cohort of people who, they're interested in this level of exam for this season, and get the list of names and get them on an email list. And I'll say, okay, I'll meet you folks at the snow sports lineup area at 3 o'clock on Saturday. This will be our first session together, going out to start the training. I want you all to print out and bring with you the performance guides for that level. And then I know if they've done that, they've taken that step to start to understand what the expectations are. And then my job as the trainer is to help them sift through that, do the gap analysis with them, and help them get closer to the goal. So that's absolutely part of it.
How do we do that with our class? And we ask them often in the opening kind of introductions, well, what's your goal for the day? Well, I want to learn how to ski. I want to learn how to snowboard.
Right.
How can we break those down where they're small and attainable, yet they're really guiding that student toward their overall goal, but without making the student feel like, wow, you're really putting me down because I said I wanted to learn how to ski and you're asking me to do this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we have them explain what the goal means to them. I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, what can I help you with today, George?" Well, I want to learn how to ski. And that means a million things to me, but I'll say, well, okay, what does that mean to you? Like by the end of this morning, what do you hope to be able to accomplish? And if George says, well, I'd like to be able to slide down where those people are going and get on that conveyor belt like they're doing and come back up here, that's probably attainable. I think we can work toward that. If they point to, if they point to the bump hill and they say, I want to go up there, say, well, okay, we'll keep it in the back of our head. Let's start with this stuff and see how close you get to that goal. And I think they would probably figure out the reality of that pretty quickly themselves, without me having to be the bad guy. Um, Matt Boyd told a beautiful story that I haven't forgotten, and it's been years since I heard him tell this, but he talked about the 12-year-old athletic kid who comes out of the rental shop with skis and first time skier, snowboarder, rental gear, the whole bit. And you meet him at the lineup area, and you've got the instructor who said, well, what are we going to do today? And the kid's like, well, I want to learn how to jump. And one type of instructor might say, well, you need to learn how to stop and slow down first, and then give them, like, just kind of squelch the dream, you know what I mean? And Matt's like, why not just click their skis on them, and when they're standing there, say jump, and the kid jumps a half inch in the air. Perfect, mission accomplished. Now let me teach you how to ski. So I think it just depends on how you go about as the teacher, like figuring out what they mean by the goal, and then trying to get them there as best you can, helping them get there.
What you said is so important of what does that mean to you? Because I have an idea in my head, and I'm really applying this to health and healthcare. When someone comes in and they've been diagnosed with a chronic disease, it's what does good health mean to you?
Mhm.
And to hear them describe it really gives me a plan for what we can do to help that person achieve that goal. And I really feel that applies to skiing. And I really like taking things that we use in PSIA-AASI and applying it to what I do in healthcare because it really works.
Yeah, and
And
that's pure, straight up collaborating with that person, working with that person, speaking with as opposed to talking at. Like it's just a best practice, and it's applicable anywhere. Like our teaching skills, our people skills are transferable anywhere. That's a great example of it.
and I think it really gives us the ability to meet that student where they are if we ask them, what's your definition of that?
Mhm. And I think also asking them a time frame, and this could be a student, it could be an instructor that we're trying to get to the next level, and people come up and say, "Hey, I really want to get level 2," and you as the trainer may know that that person is pretty far from that goal at present, and I think a typical reaction may be to kind of like go, well, in your own head, oh my, you're not even close to that, but just by asking a simple question like, well, when are you thinking? Like, what's your time frame? Well, I think maybe season after this one, I'd like to do that. And all of a sudden, your assumption was like, okay, you're relieved because you realize how wrong your original assumption was. You know what I mean? But I think in either case, what's the goal? What's the time frame? We have to get that information from them. Like that's just the best way to do it.
And it's, we had the expert talk. It's so easy at that point then to have the expert want to come out
Right.
and say, well, you want to learn how to jump, you've got to learn all this other stuff first. Or you want your level 2, you really need to do these things first. And that really is putting up barriers for that person toward achieving that goal.
Mhm. Yeah. And the gap analysis helps with that. Like 12-year-old kid who comes up and says, I want to learn to jump. Yeah, well, you don't know how to jump right now? Well, yeah, I know how to jump. I meant on the ski. Oh, I put them on and jump. You know, like they come with skills. So that gap analysis for that hypothetical instructor who wants to work on level 2 might be very, very good at skidded medium radius turns. And if you don't know that information as you develop the training plan, you're going to assume that's something you need to strive for when it's already there. So open communication uh, offsets that frustration, offsets that waste of time, and it makes it's going to make them happier. It's going to make you a better coach by taking that approach to it.
And if you have a group lesson and you're asking different people their goals and you're hearing kind of a wide variety. I mean, in our minds, can we be thinking, okay, for this person to achieve this goal, we can work on this and then apply that to the other people within the group so that we're not getting confused. We're working together to really achieve the same goals.
Yeah. Yeah. And
even
then,
though those same goals are different goals.
right. Yeah. And we can also sell the next lesson, right? Like the business model loves when we sell the next lesson. So if something's not attainable in that chunk of time, you demonstrate why. Like here's where you want to get. This is what it looks like. Give them the demo. And now you try it, but they'll see how far that they are from that. You say, well, look, if you come back, I'm here on Saturdays. Why don't you come back? Here's my card or whatever. And like, I know where we left off. When you come back, we'll review this part, but this is what we'll do. And that'll get you close. And that's the baby steps you were referring to in the beginning, but sell that next lesson.
But you just did a very detailed analysis of what you would do in that next lesson. You gave them steps that you would do and didn't make just a generalized statement about it either, which I really liked how specific you were in that example.
I think the more specific we are about it, the more they'll trust us, and they'll say that we're not just trying to sell them another expensive lesson. It's like, well, here's where your performance was. Here's what you want to do. So you need A, B, and C. And do you see how that pathway will get you there? Well, yeah. I mean, if it makes sense, they're going to see that. And then you have credibility, and they trust you.
Angelo, anything you'd like to say in conclusion about goal setting?
I would like to add one bit, and it's because I've experienced failure with some of my goals in the past. And I think a contingency plan is wise, and you get into that conversation between open mindset and closed mindset. And somebody with a closed mindset very often will experience failure, and then that's it. They're done. I quit. That's I can't do it. It'll never happen. Versus an open mindset where somebody says, all right, well, this is the goal I want to achieve. I only work weekends. I'm from a small mountain. This is a national certification, which means, we don't even have pitch like the certification level I'm trying to get. So I'm probably going to have to travel a bit. And this might take a couple attempts. And if you start out with that contingency plan, I'm not saying doom yourself to failure, but I think there's some wisdom in acknowledging it could be acknowledging it's a possibility, right? Because life happens, life comes up. So when you do experience that failure, it's like, okay, yep, it happened. Now here's the plan. I got my feedback. I'm going to change this gym routine. I'm going to start stretching this. I got my pivot slips down, so I'm going to start doing my step turn or whatever it is, and I'm going to come back at this. And I think acknowledging that that's a possibility from the beginning, it probably motivates you to work a little harder because you realize failure can happen. But if and when it does happen, it's not the end of the world, because it isn't the end of the world. It's just like a hiccup. So I think that's important to acknowledge when you're talking about setting goals.
Angelo, I'm really looking forward to taking a clinic with you sometime in the near future. We're having 100+ degrees here in Oregon right now, so I don't know, in a couple of months.
I chatted with Troy Walsh and Michael Rogan last night and Dave Caper, and Troy and Rogan are in Portillo, and it is proper winter down there. So maybe we ought to go bunk up with those guys.
Sounds good to me.
That sounds good to me too.
But for now, thank you for chatting with us
yes, sir.
From the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Hood River, Oregon. And thank you all for listening to First Chair.